11 years ago, a first-person horror teaser called PT, standing for Playable Trailer or Playable Teaser, dropped on PlayStation 4 and kind of turned the horror world on its head. While the game it was supposed to tease, Silent Hills, got cancelled, and PT itself subsequently got pulled from the PlayStation Store, it sparked a horror renaissance that saw a plethora of copycat games emerge and try to recreate that specific feeling of dread that PT perfectly invoked. Some of these were laughable attempts, like the pathetic Apartment 666 on Steam, while others were absolute masterpieces, like the god-tier Resident Evil 7. None quite emulated and ever enhanced the experience and terror, however, quite as masterfully as Sad Square Studios' Visage. Visage follows a man named Dwayne Anderson. In the game's opening, you can see him shoot and kill his wife, son, and daughter before shooting himself. He then awakens, however, in a small and desolate room, before exiting and finding himself back in his house. As he makes his way through the house, he starts to experience paranormal events that slowly but surely chip away at his sanity. From there, the game is divided into 4 chapters. The first 3 chapters can be completed in any order and are initiated by interacting with a specific object that shows you the fate of the house's previous residents. The 4th chapter takes place through 7 segments, each of which are initiated by playing a VHS tape. These reveal elements of Dwayne's life, and going through each gives Dwayne a piece of a mask that triggers the ending cutscene. The game's story is deeply evocative, and the fact that it's told through glimpses into the lives of other people and other times gives the players the feeling that they're not experiencing the story of a person so much as the story and history of the home itself. Visage is an absolute exemplar of horror done right. There are a few minor nitpicks that I have with the game, upon which I'll expand in a moment, but as far as the atmosphere, the tone, the story, and the overall sense of dread and terror, this game does everything right. It's probably the scariest game that I've ever played, and is the only game that's ever taken that title away from Outlast. On 4 separate occasions during my playthrough, I screamed like a girl and threw my controller, and that in itself proves that Sad Square knows exactly how to do jump scares. All too often, jump scares are overdone and used too frequently as a cheap substitute for making a game genuinely scary, but Visage uses them sparingly to enhance the experience rather than to fake it. The jump scares in this game are infrequent enough that you never start to expect or predict them, and they're timed and placed so perfectly that they always get the desired effect. With all of the horror games I've played in my life, and that is a substantial number, I've never seen a game use jump scares this well. It's also extremely difficult, and I don't mean difficulty staying alive. Some of these puzzles are straight up missed levels of obscure and hard to figure out. I feel zero shame in admitting that I had to Google what to do on more than one occasion. I personally don't consider this a bad thing at all, as the feeling of helplessness and confusion adds to the tension of the game. But it's definitely worth noting that Visage will put your deduction and reasoning skills to the test. The only real issues I have with the game are extremely minor and are mostly proofreading issues. There are a number of places where the spacing is off in dialogue subtitles. A line will read something like, "The doctor said there was," with no space between there and was. Nothing they could do for him, with do and for having no space between them. With only 1 or 2 exceptions, the sentence itself still makes perfect sense and just needed another pass of proofreading. There are a couple instances where either a translation was off or the writer's brain just moved faster than their fingers and led to a nonsense sentence, but I only saw 2 or 3 instances of that in the entire game, and it was never in an important story piece. My only other criticism, and the only one that I think really matters, is that the game's physics can get a little wonky sometimes. There are a few instances where you have to carry a large object, a chair, a wooden plank, etc., and walk through doors or narrow hallways. These objects can get stuck in the doorway or lodged into the wall of the walkway and just sort of stay behind. The game doesn't make you automatically drop them, thankfully, but it can take some jiggling and finagling to get the object where it needs to be. Sometimes this happens in very small tunnels and crawl spaces with objects like lighters, and these are important since darkness lowers your sanity. It's not a major issue, as it never caused me to die or become stuck or anything, but it definitely is an annoyance. Honestly, Visage is the most impressive horror game I've ever played. And that's especially true when you consider that this is an indie studio's first game, and it got its funding from Kickstarter. As great as those series are, no big budget horror game like Resident Evil, Silent Hill, or Fatal Frame have ever scared me quite as badly as Visage did. The timing and sparing use of jump scares, the subtle touches with the atmosphere of the house, and the random occurrences of the paranormal events rather than pre-scripted events all combine into making a true horror masterpiece. I rarely give games with identifiable issues a perfect score, but between the issues being pretty minor here and the absolute masterclass in video game horror that Visage represents, I couldn't not give this game a perfect score. This is, without a doubt, the finest example of video game horror that I've ever experienced. My rating for Visage on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and Windows is an S.